G'day and welcome back to Uneducated Entrepreneurs. Welcome. This is our second podcast that we've done. So I'm Pete. This is Dan.
How we doing?
If it's your first time, we're looking forward to you getting to know us. So this is only our second podcast that we've done. Our first one, we'd done an interview with Dan and got to know Dan a little bit more. Got to know what sort of stuff he's interested in, his ideas and his experience in business. Today Dan will be interviewing me, and we'll get to know me a little bit.
Yes. Looking forward to it. So how are you today, Pete? You good?
Yeah, I'm all right. How about yourself?
Well, got a bit of a sniffle, but we're getting there.
COVID.
Look, it could be. Who knows? No, probably not. No, hopefully last week we had a few technical difficulties, but this week's looking good. So I get to interview you today. So how about we just start with how you started? Is tell us a bit about yourself, what you do for fun, and what you're doing at the moment.
So a bit about myself. So I'm Dan and we covered this a bit last week. Dan and I've known each other for a good number of years now. We knew each other actually since the beginning of school. So it's been a while since then. We've been out of school for over a decade. And Dan was going to mention this on our Facebook. If you go and see our Facebook page and our website, there's photos of us. One of mine is from 6 years ago, before I had a business myself and was running a business. But it's changed a lot, I guess.
Changed, yes. There are no dreadlocks anymore. But it was wild times.
It was wild times. Yeah, I guess I've settled down a bit. I'm a father. I've got a lovely wife called Jess and a young son called Hezekiah. So he's only 9 months old. So that's been a huge impact on my business walk and my business life, and just changing the experiences of what that is like, and trying to juggle and have healthy work-life balance with that, especially when you're in your own business. It can be extremely difficult to make sure that you have healthy work-life balance, and it's I'm a bit of a workaholic sometimes, so I've really had to put limits on myself with the business and different things like that. I've actually been diagnosed myself with autism, so if you see me staring off to the side a little bit every now and then, it's just because I'm processing what I'm saying, and it's a bit easier for me to focus. So, and Dan himself is also learning to stare directly at the camera rather than staring at his screen or rolling his eyes.
Yeah, we'll work. It's a work in progress, but there's probably an eye roll just then. It is what it is. Probably another one. So you can count how many times I will keep me accountable. Put it in the comments.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know in the comments how many he's done.
This many times.
He's so disinterested in the conversation.
Yeah, I'm actually not. I do love chatting everything business and Pete. So it's just a matter of working it out and getting the roles in check.
It takes us a bit of time. Dan doesn't have as much experience. I've hired. Sorry, I just smacked my mic there. I've hired well over 60, 70 employees. So I've had to do a lot of interviews because obviously we've had our business majority through COVID.
Yeah.
I actually I have a disability support service in which we have support workers all throughout Southeast Queensland.
Mm-hmm.
We provide workers for people with disabilities. So we started that back in 2019. I'm pretty sure it was. So we're coming up on our third birthday. I'm just going to share my screen for a bit. I'll just show you. We've got our website. I'll give you guys a bit of a look at our website and the stuff that we do. Let me just share here.
We're getting that up. We will link to all of his websites and everything, details down below in the description. So check that out. And whilst we're at it, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, hit the bell. We'll be doing this once a week. So yeah, do that.
Stick around for next week. We've got I've got a mate of mine who owns a cleaning business. Actually, it was a cleaning business that was in a very poor state and wasn't going to survive. And he's actually turned it around. And he's got a number of kids as well, and he's very experienced with like the mental health side and being able to flip a business, being able to turn it back around. And it's just really difficult in this day and age. Sometimes you can feel very overwhelmed with having a business that may not be successful, but perseverance is probably one of the biggest things that I personally have found in my walk in life with business. As you can see on screen, this is our This is our company, so it's a VAS support. So we do provide a whole range of different services, as you can see here. So we provide everything from short-term accommodation through to SILS, which is support independent living, community access, personal cares, group support, activities, domestic assistance. We do complex behaviour support as well. The reason I got into this sort of industry was because I actually worked as a disability support worker myself for a long period of time. That's how I started this business. I was working in the industry for, I've been at 8 or 9 years now. I'm not 100% sure on the actual number.
That's all right.
But I have a background in sales and all that sort of stuff. But I got into the disability sector to make a difference. Like Dan said in our other podcast, he's more on the internet side of things, and I'm more your brick and mortar. You're having a heap of employees and providing services or selling things, different things like that. That's sort of my area that I'm really interested in. I'm also really interested in the mental health side of business.
Yeah.
People maintaining a healthy work-life balance, people maintaining because I personally had a lot of trouble with my ASD, with my autism, having that balance of life, having the balance of running a business with several employees. Yeah, several employees. We've
At the
got a general.
start.
We've put a general manager in place.
It's a few more than a couple of staff now. It's quite a bit bigger.
Yeah, so it grew ridiculously in a short period of
Yeah.
time, and that actually came with its own challenges. Like a lot of people have said, "Oh man, it must be awesome that you've got a really successful business and you've got such a high turnover, a high profitability, and you've got such a high." So we've got very little to no cash flow problems. It's an incredible industry where invoices are paid within 1 to 2 weeks instead of having to wait. Sometimes I've got mates that are in building industry or in
Yeah.
different fields like that, and they're waiting up to 6 months
Yeah.
sometimes, even more,
Yeah.
and that's just ridiculous. So I was very very blessed to get into this sort of industry. So the reason I started a company was because I was working as a support worker, and I just got fed up with other organisations wanting to putting the wrong people in
Yeah.
with participants and things like that, and just not having that right connection,
Yeah.
I guess. So I myself ended up going to do private work, and this is how it started. It was slow. Wasn't a big thing. It was a thing that took time. I became a sole trader, and I worked with a couple of supports, which grew to more supports, and then I got to a point where I actually couldn't handle the amount of people that wanted me to work with them.
Yeah.
So I actually got another couple of mates of mine into the sole trader business. So they started their own small business as being sole traders.
Yeah.
And then a mate of mine, one of those guys, was like, "Peter, I think you should start a business out of this because we keep getting more people." And so we took the plunge back in July 1, 2019,
Yeah.
start of the financial year.
Yeah, that's
It's been incredible since then.
Yeah.
Like, it's grown at an absolute ridiculous rate. But that comes with its own challenges, maintaining quality control of staff. So even though we don't have quality control of, say, for example, a product, we do have a quality control of staffing and having to make sure that they're all right and having the right training, and that's all had to develop very, very fast. A lot of other companies have a chance to put these things into practice and develop them slowly as they grow over a period of time. But the disability sector has just grown astronomically in this short period of time.
Yeah, no, when going back to sort of when you first started and then how sort of what the numbers were that you were pulling in, I was completely amazed. I'm like, this is not normal. Like, you shouldn't be pulling this much profit after starting a business for 6 months. I mean, given you were doing 23 hours a day, 6 days a week, like you were doing some stupid hours. But like the contrast from coming from, I guess my business is like online, where everything's a little bit slower and takes a bit of time to get going, like especially if you're doing things organically or relying on traffic through your friends and family. It takes a lot longer. Whereas, yeah, when we were on the phone that first time, I was like, yeah, I started a business. I'm like, oh yeah, nice, sweet. And then the phone call.
Yeah, it was like a couple of months later, and I'm like, yeah, I've got eight staff members now, and you're like, what? You only just started.
I was blown away, but it's so good to see. And that's just the difference, I suppose, in sectors. It's like where you're in the more healthcare mindfulness with all your participants and support working. Whereas I'm like,
Yep.
let me provide you an online service. I do online sales more or less versus
Yeah.
providing a service, which is a bit different in that as well. And sorry, you
Having said that, most disability services, they don't grow this
no,
quickly. Most businesses, even brick and mortar businesses, I have been very, very lucky and very, very fortunate that I found a niche in the market. So what we do is, as a company, we look for support workers specifically for
Yeah.
our participants. So we'll bring a participant on board. So what was happening at other companies was they would hire a whole heap of support workers and then put them in with
Yeah.
participants, and they don't think about the matchup. Whereas what we do is we reverse that, which is something that used to be done under a different model of funding. But we bring participants or people with disabilities on board with our organization, and then we actively go out and hire specifically for those people. And so we provided a service that was different, and it just came down to just a lot of hard work and networking. So networking was one of the biggest things. Like, I was having to spend hours upon hours talking with psychologists, support coordinators, people within the NDIS. I was having to talk with counselors. I was having to talk with other organizations, all of that sort of stuff, in order to be able to build up the contacts to be able to have all those participants on board. And it was a ton of work, and it did cause a lot of stress within relationships within my life. Like, and that's a sacrifice. There are sacrifices that have to be made. You look at ultra successful people in the business world. A lot of the ultra successful people that I know are struggling in their relationships, or have had failed marriages or different things like that in the past. And that was something that I became hyper aware of, and that I wanted to avoid in my own life. Which is why we ended up getting a general manager to run things. So back to a bit about what I do now is I still do networking, and I'm still meeting with my business, and I'm still growing the business, but I'm actually a stay-at-home dad. So I spend 3 days a week with my son. He's actually asleep out there somewhere. He'll be asleep for the next hour or so. But then I get to actually spend really quality time with my son for those 3 days a week, and not have to worry about income and finances, and be able to have a stable income, and be able to live well below my means, because that's what my wife and I do. That's the biggest thing in creating wealth, is living below your means.
Following the true Dave Ramsey thing there. No, it's good.
Well, that's not just a Dave Ramsey thing. That's an every person thing. Because if you don't live below, there's the what do they call it? That wage creep. I've forgotten the actual name of it.
Lifestyle
Whereas
inflation.
your lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle inflation. Yeah, it gets everyone. Excuse Pete while he's dying in the background there.
Yeah, sorry about that. But that's the issue, is as people's income increases, they tend to live a lifestyle that increases with that. Like, and that's where people go wrong. That's why you have all these people who have earned millions and millions of dollars that are now worth
and then
nothing.
living paycheck to paycheck, even though they're on six figures. They're like still waiting for that next paycheck, whether it be weekly, monthly, fortnightly, like whatever it is. They're still living weekly to week, like paycheck to paycheck, which is just no way to live, in my opinion.
Well, see, earning six figures isn't unrealistic in this day and age now for the general population. Like, it's if you're willing to put the hours in there and put the work in there, even doing a side job, even doing a job, working for someone, being an employee, which is, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I love employees. So if you want a job, just apply online.
It is the easiest way to make money, is getting a job. Trust me.
It is the easiest way to make money. When you run a business, it's so difficult. I'm going to have to cough. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I should make sure I bring water with me next time.
It's fine. I can always cut stuff out.
But yeah, it's the easiest way to be able to make money is be an employee and have that job security there, that safety net there. Running a business is not for everyone.
That's exactly it.
Like, I never dreamed that I would be able to stay at home with my son 3 days a week. Well, technically it's 5, because it's 3 work days, Monday to Friday. I stay with him Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. and then I do work on Thursday, Friday, and then I have Saturday and Sunday with him as well.
Which is just good.
So I never dreamed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never dreamed that I'd be able to get to that point in less than
That's
3
ridiculous.
years.
Like everyone wants that, and I think a lot of people do forget. Like I all love the idea of starting a side hustle. They're always looking up top 10 passive ways to earn income online in 2022. Like there's a bunch of those videos going around, but in all seriousness, like the easiest way to make extra money is just get a second part-time job. Whether that be
Yeah,
making coffees or front of house in a
Uber.
as I do. I mean, that's my full-time wage at the moment, but like it provides that extra income, allowing for that freedom. Later on in life when you're not having to live paycheck to paycheck per se. And now, before we keep going on your business, Pete, now as you can probably see, our podcast is uneducated entrepreneurs. So, what qualifies you as an uneducated entrepreneur?
Well, you kind of answered the question in that by asking me the question. I actually was studying paramedic and nursing at university, and I dropped out. So I was a few months away. So I do have an education, but I don't have any degrees. I worked in the industry in the disability sector. I do have a Cert 4 in it, but I actually didn't study for that Cert 4. It was I RPL'd the whole thing. I have been accepted into studying a business degree, but I've decided to put that on hold because I haven't needed it at this current point in time. I mean, I understand why there is education. I'm not saying education is bad by any stretch. I just don't think education degrees are necessarily mandatory these days for jobs or for the development of businesses and all of that sort of thing. They definitely help. Like they give you a different way of thinking and being able to process. Because if you can think about it, you've just spent 12 years of your life,
Literally,
right,
yeah.
at school. When you go to school, 12 years of your life where you eat at a certain time, so you go, okay, I go to school and then I've got this class and then I've got this class and then I've got this class and I'm being told what to do the whole way through, right? It's the way that the education system is designed is like a labor workforce. So they're teaching you to obey the rules, to follow what they're telling you to do, to wear this uniform, to do this, to do that. And it can stifle creativity.
Yeah, exactly.
And stifle freedom. So for somebody who, like myself, who's not neurotypical, it's actually wasn't the most effective education form.
Exactly.
So I did graduate grade 12, but I graduated with an employee mindset rather than a business mindset. And I'm actually an accidental business owner. It was never my dream. It was never my plan to have a business. I was never like, there's people that are like, oh yes, I'm going to start a business and from a very young age and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Like that was not something that I'd ever considered. It was not something I ever thought of. And it was just purely the fact that I was not happy with a particular thing in a particular industry. I looked for a niche to fix that. So it's a problem and there's a solution. And I created a solution that I believed would work. And it has worked.
Exactly.
And that's why it's been successful. And that's why I then do. So my general manager does have an executive master's degree in business. Right. I have facilitators that have degrees or diplomas in a whole range of different things. But I don't. So it's been an interesting experience. I'm going to duck off and we're going to pause it right now. I'm going to duck off and grab a cup of water.
We're just going to...
Make sure you keep hydrated,
and
kids.
We're back. Pete's now got water. We can continue out.
He doesn't feel like he's dying.
So going back to the uneducated thing, like one of the big things, how you were saying that going through 12 years of school, that is more or less preparing you for a workforce, working you 40 years and retiring with $1 million in your super account, is the normal thing. Like that is one thing that really irks me, I guess you could say, about the current educational system, is anything like they have obviously like your business studies, but they only talk about some tax ramifications and like if you're going to become an accountant kind of thing. They don't actually, from my experience, because I also finished year 12, and then as I said last week, didn't finish a degree. Um, but like during school, like they don't prepare you for, I guess, setting yourself up financially so that you're not having to live paycheck to paycheck. Um, so like that kind of like I feel like that definitely needs to be fixed for like obviously the next generation because at the rate we're going with the current education, it's like we're all gonna just start living paycheck to paycheck, and it's just like it's just an old traditional tired way of learning, um, which I think definitely inhibits it. I
Don't
mean, I'm slaying on it just a little bit. There is merit.
That's pretty intense. I do sort of I disagree in
That's
a
good.
little sense of that because I think at the end of the day we need to have the
Mm.
education system. Like we need to there needs to be. I wouldn't have a business right now if I didn't have a
Yeah,
workforce. Like one of the biggest assets that I have within the company is finding people that are willing to work. Right, so that's one of the biggest things going. It's one of the most difficult things is being able to find people that are happy to follow the rules, that are able to obey instructions, that are able to follow all of that sort of stuff. I mean, in our industry, particularly, you don't actually need a qualification to start, but it's looked
mm.
highly upon to, in the future, get a certificate 3 or a certificate 4 in disability
Yeah,
services. But so I get that there probably should be some added
yeah.
classes or different things like that, or the option, or different, maybe even different schools
Mm.
or different classes that they could add for entrepreneurs or people with a business mindset, or with a like for me, it might have helped me a lot better to have different classes that made me think holistically about a business approach or entrepreneurship or life in general, rather than just oh, here's your math, science, English. This is what you have to do to get it,
Yeah.
go into university. This is what you have to do to get a degree. Go on, and then as soon as you finish
Yeah,
school, go get a
yeah.
degree.
I should clarify. Like, I didn't always think of the entrepreneurial mind. Didn't have that. Like, I pretty much fell into it, um, and there was
Yep.
definitely like, yes, there is merit in the like education system. Added classes is probably the best way to do that. By adding classes into it. Because I mean, I didn't really even during school, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the school and education. Like, I thought it was fine. It was only once I started sort of looking down the business side of things, I'm like, I don't know how to do anything like like obviously you got to do stuff, but like financially, it's like it was living paycheck to paycheck. I'm like, well, what am I meant to do here? Like there isn't that ingrained, I guess, idea of what works and what doesn't work. So I should probably
Mm.
clarify. I agree with the schooling system, but
Nah, it's all good.
I've got three teachers, well, two teachers and one teacher to be in my family, so they're all into it
Well,
deeply.
the thing is though, there's it's a systemic thing. Like you can't. It's going to be something that's nearly
Yeah,
impossible to change because it's going to need an entire
mm,
overhaul of the system, and then we're going to have problems. At the end of the day, everybody is going to
yeah,
complain about
that's
something
true.
within some
Yeah,
sort of system. Let's get back onto I want to have a bit more of a chat about like routines and stuff like
hmm,
that within my personal life, and growth and development in that sort of area, particularly for a successful
yeah,
business and healthy work life balance. Um, I think within my own personal life, I guess one of the most important things that I've found is systematic routines. Right, is being able to go, all right, this is something that I need to do now. This is, and then just every morning doing the same thing over and over again, and having a set protocol
yeah,
to be the most efficient that I can be. What you'll see is I think I mentioned this last week. I have about 15
yeah,
of the same shirts. I just I find a shirt that I like and I just buy a ton of them, and then I don't. I just walk into my cupboard and I grab a shirt and put my shirt on. I've included gym routines into my routines and all of that sort of stuff. So making sure that I'm healthy both physically, because that's the thing that I found when I first started the business. I was great, it was awesome until about a year and a half
yeah,
in, and that's when I started to have a lot of trouble with both my health, with my relationships, with
yeah,
all of this sort of stuff. It was because I lost that routine. I lost that drive. I actually
yeah,
lost my focus, um, and so I've had to spend a lot of time re re-identifying my focus and my drive within what do I want to do, what do I want to achieve, what do I want to see happen, what do I want to how do I want to impact the world? Because at the end of the day, for me, it's not about money. It's about freedom of time in which I can sow back into the community, right? I'm so passionate about. I'm a Christian as well. I'm so passionate about developing communities and being able to help communities. I'm so passionate about volunteering and just helping out in different places where I can, and that's what. It's not the money that I chase; it's that freedom to be able to do that sort of stuff. I love being able to go. All right, do you know what? We've got some extra money here. Let's go and give it to this cause, or let's help these people out, or a whole range of different things. And even in our company, we've got the same culture. I'm so always pumping to all of my employees about business culture. Business culture is the most important thing to me ever. Like, it's, if you have a really healthy business culture, that's going to increase happiness within staff. It's going to increase their enjoyment levels and their productivity levels. It makes them enjoy coming into work, and you actually end up having like less sick days. There's studies that have said that you have less, they end up having less time off, they have less mental health days, less sick days, and they actually enjoy coming in to have that camaraderie. Like, with COVID, everyone had been working from home, and we've got a couple of staff that had a lot of trouble with that, and maintaining culture via a digital presence was very, very difficult. But we've had a couple that were just like raring to get back into the office. They were so excited to be around people and be around community and be around just that atmosphere and that business culture. And that is so important to maintain. But it has to be your culture, right? As you grow, as a company grows, obviously the culture is going to get watered down. So as you start to develop into different areas, it's very hard to maintain a single culture. So what normally ends up happening is, we are all throughout Southeast Queensland, so we have an office branch in the Redland Bay area. We're developing one up on the north side, and we have one in the Ipswich area as well. And what ends up happening is they develop their own sort of subcultures within the business, and it's about making sure that those subcultures are still healthy and maintaining a finger in the pie, I guess, and just making sure that everything's going right. Because you can't, at the end of the day, one of the hardest things that has been for me personally is micromanaging, or wanting to know everything that's going on and being in control all the time.
Don't do it.
Right? Well, when you get to a business of the size of mine, you can't do that. Right. The first 2 years, I did everything myself. I did the invoicing myself. I did the payroll myself. I did. My wife did the website design. We've had a whole change of our logo. We've had a whole new design on that. So everything like that's been changed now. But before that, I did it. I was managing rosters. I was managing like the Xero accounts, everything. I had an accountant, yes, but I was still doing all the reconciliation myself. And I struggled to let go. So the first person I actually brought on was a bookkeeper. And then I had all these employees that were working for me. At the time, it was probably only about 30 employees. But at that time, I knew exactly where every single one of those employees was working.
Before we continue on going down that culture thing, I just want to touch on when you found yourself in that position where you thought, your work was affecting your health, your relationships, your work. What did it look like getting out of that? Like, what were your first steps that you did? Obviously realizing it, but like, from once you realized, what did you do next to get into your routines that you are in now?
I started actually talking to people. Like, I actually so I've got a business mentor, which I don't see as much anymore, but I did in the interim. I also went and saw a psychologist for a bit in my own personal walk, and just to sort of get my head screwed on a bit straighter, going, hang on, I need to refocus. And it's really good to have an external source, someone who's not involved, that doesn't know any of the situation that's going on, to actually soundboard off and go, hey, this is my experiences, talking, blah, blah, blah. I also talked with Dan, and I talked with mates, and I'm the kind of person that gets multiple different perspectives of a situation, and then I just kind of go, all right, so there seems to be a consensus here on what I need to do or what's going on. I've got a lot of business friends, so I have a lot of chats with them. A lot of people who with very, very successful businesses and people with not so many successful businesses.
Myself
Like
included.
I have a range of.
Yeah. Anyways, continue, sorry.
Well, actually, my mate that we've got coming on next week, I've chatted with him because he actually suffered a burnout with his business, and I had a big chat with him, and he goes, Peter, I've noticed it with yourself, like just the stuff that we talk about and the things. He goes, you just need to be really careful and all that sort of stuff. So the biggest thing about it is talking. Like it's have a conversation, and then I actually had to. So, in order to get self-discipline, you have to be disciplined. I know it sounds really counterintuitive, right? But to be self-disciplined, because you can't run a successful business without self-discipline, right? You can have self-discipline in the start. You could be really self-disciplined in the start, and then it sort of can fade away, right? But you need to maintain that self-discipline, right? And the way you do that is by doing it, right? So it's a mindset shift. It's a change in your mind going, when my alarm goes off in the morning, I don't just click no and go, I'm going to go back to bed, right? So sometimes I'm up really late at night with Hezekiah, and because he's teething or something's going wrong or he's not happy, but still I get up every morning at 4:45, right? Because I've got to get up, get ready, go to the gym while Hezekiah's still asleep and my wife is asleep. And then I'm back home in an hour, so I only spend about an hour at the gym. And then I take over looking after Hezekiah while I get home and I have a shower. We sit down and have breakfast together. I read my Bible, I pray, and then I look after Hezekiah while Jess goes and gets ready for work, and then she heads down to work. She heads off to work. So it's about actually doing it. So if you're going to set yourself something to do, do it. Right? There's no excuses for you not to do it. I can come up with heaps and heaps of excuses. Exactly. Sorry, I just thought I heard my son.
Put him on.
I have a baby monitor here, guys, so it's okay.
That's right. So you'd say that, was it the talking or the getting into the routines that you found the hardest? When you were both, so
both.
Hand in hand?
Both of them were hard. Like it's just one's an emotional thing. One's a hang on, I actually need help with this, and I can't process it all myself. Right, and then the other one is actually doing what you said you're going to do.
Has he woken up?
Right, and sticking to that plan. Nah, he's okay. I think even if he's not, he can.
Yeah, right. So that's interesting. I think it definitely, there is merit in having a morning routine. That's why you see all of these videos around where all these highly successful people are like, this is my morning routine. It's because it's so critical to your business. And like going briefly on mine, because I don't want to obviously take too much time, it's like my ideal is I work 4 days a week with Uber, more or less 12 hours to 13 hours a day on Uber. And then the 3 days, which I will be moving up to 4, would be purely focused on my business and then obviously the podcast as well. And then it's waking up at a certain time every day. And I've been slipping the last couple of days because obviously things happen, you get tired, and then it's like you're doing 4 or 5 hours sleeps and you're like, I need to sleep some more. Like your body just can't keep up. And so having that discipline, I think, is definitely...
Is that not a place then where you need to sort out a night routine?
So it goes hand in hand. It's like that's sort of what I'm looking at now. It's like, well, I need to obviously get X amount of sleep every night because it's obviously impacting my sleep. Because then, I mean, I can manage like fairly well on 4 or 5 hours sleep, but I can't do that in successful days. I couldn't do that for a full week. It's just
you can't do. See, when I was doing my business in the first year, that was something that I really struggled with, was because I was only doing about 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I actually maintained that for about a year and a half, which is, I'm not saying that's a good thing by any stretch. It was actually very bad for my mental health because here's the thing, sleep is so important because you actually can't, your brain can't function properly. Your brain can't make the decisions that you need to when it's tired like that. So you actually need to be able to have I think it's 6 to 8
Yeah, I
hours
think it's
sleep
about
is
that.
the
Yeah.
recommended. Right, so when you start functioning on that less, your decisions that you're making become worse and worse and worse, and you're actually regressing rather than progressing. Right? People think, oh, well, I'm going to sleep like that because there's some successful
No.
people that do it. If it doesn't
Yeah.
work for you, it doesn't work for you. If you need 10 hours of sleep a night,
Yeah, exactly.
you need 10 hours of sleep a
Exactly.
night to function. If you only need 4 hours of sleep a night to function, you only
Yeah.
sleep 4 hours.
Going to now, what sort of
Yep.
does your business look like size-wise? If you're happy to share those
Size-wise,
numbers.
so we're... I don't actually know the numbers off the top of my head on
True
the actual
success here,
employees.
guys. Doesn't know how many people he employs.
Or, see, the thing is, I have a general manager that runs all of that sort of stuff, so it's not something that I have to keep on a day-to-day basis. It's, I meet with my general manager once a fortnight at this current point in time, and we go through things and we strategize. And I spend a lot of time looking at the future development. So we're looking at getting into the aged care sector. We're looking at getting into the residential care sector, and we've got access points to all of those. But we want to make sure all of our systems are in place properly to be able to best equip us to diversify into different sectors. They're all obviously in the care sector, and we've got people that want us to get into all these different things because of not just my networks, but also my general managers' networks, my facilitators' networks, all of this, right? So I usually leave all of that stuff to her at this current point in time, and I just look at just the raw figures and the raw numbers and the percentages. I mean, the hard thing is people think getting into the disability sector, they're like, oh, I'm going to make a ton of money. But the NDIS actually, there's in their guidelines is they only want you to, they say a successful business with in-place systems should only be making 1 or 2% profit. Right, which is what NDIS expects, right? So it means that you actually need size in order to make the company successful and be able to grow in finances. Obviously, that's a large organization. That's what they're expecting from a large organization. You can make more in a smaller organization. So if you're starting out, you can do that. You can create a business and all of that sort of stuff. And it's not a very difficult industry to get involved with. But it's a difficult industry to be successful in. I know 3-4 other companies, startups that have failed in the period that I've had mine. On top of that, there's been 2 or 3 in the Ipswich area that have folded, that had been long-term disability providers. So they ended up folding when they changed from NDIS from DSQ, which is Disability Services Queensland, to the new NDIS model. So it isn't always the easiest. I actually have been extremely lucky. So luck has played a huge part.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I had my business, I had my business mentor when I first met him, and we started talking through some stuff. Just because he's got experience, he's run several successful businesses. And he's still got several up and running. But I was having a chat with him, and we're going through our zero accounts and our finances and all of that sort of stuff. And he was telling me that he's like, he looks at it because we only just started and I didn't know certain things and I was still learning and I made a lot of mistakes. And he was like, whoa, you guys have really, really great cash flow. Kind of looks like you guys are money laundering here. And I was like, oh, great. No, I don't want it to look like that. How do we fix this? And all of that sort of stuff. But as you grow and develop, it does end up getting down to that low percentage, which is 1 or 2%. So people think in the disability sector, you're making an absolute fortune off everyone, but you're not, right? Because then you have to balance the stress of the government doing, like the ombudsman, which is doing all the pays and wages, with the NDIS pay rate. They're not actually talking with each other. So it doesn't make a whole heap of sense, right? So it's stuff like that. But that's why I've handed a lot of that stuff on. So you don't have my business coach made a comment and he said, you don't have a dog and bark as well.
Interesting.
Right? So you don't have a general manager and do the managing. You trust that general manager, because if the issue is if you don't trust that general manager, you shouldn't have had them in there in the first place. Right? You need to find somebody that you trust that will run the company. They're not going to run it. They're going to run it to the best that they can, the way that you want it to be run. Right, but there's always going to be slight differences. And the biggest and hardest thing I think I had personally from an entrepreneur and a bit of a wanting to be in control with everything was letting go. Was going, all right, I don't have to be involved with the day-to-day. And that took that was a big step. And that's why I've stepped back, and that's why she's running it, and that's why I'm staying at home with my son, and that's why we've had such a great time, and the business is continuing to grow. I still work on a lot of the sales side and bringing on participants and having conversations with people. But apart from that, it's sort of running on its own now, which is pretty awesome.
So for all those that don't know, NDIS stands for... You said it a lot.
National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Yeah, that's all right.
I probably should have said that first. Having said that, it kind of is... Oh, this is for... If you're an international viewer, so that's our disability services. So we call them support workers. You guys might call them carers. A lot of people know them as carers. Or... I don't know what you guys call them. I've done a bit of research into the US. You guys have a very different... The US has a very different system to ours.
Viewer, let us know what you call your support workers in the comments.
Or your disability service. Like, what is their funding, or really how does all that sort of stuff work? I know it's different. It's different state to state basis, and it's definitely... I mean, our support workers are paid very, very well. Like, for an uneducated position, they're flipping, like, as a starting position in our company, they're paid over $29 an hour as a starting position as a disability support worker. Like, that's no qualifications. That's straight out of school, and you can earn $30 an hour, pretty much. Like, that's just nuts.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, like, there's so much more we could talk about, but yes, as you have said, Hezekiah is up and awake. So we are going to close out on this. So it's been great chatting. This is our second ever episode. It'll be up. Yeah,
still working out all the kinks and stuff,
this week. Let us know how many times I rolled. I wasn't keeping count, so I'll be doing that whilst I go back and edit it. If you're an international viewer, let us know what your disability services over there are called, if you have any, or if you don't, or if you need some. Maybe we would branch out and set one up.
If you have any topics that you want us to cover as well, we're more than happy to have a chat. Like, I love working with small business owners and just having a chat with people about just different struggles and stuff that they're having. We'll obviously be bringing people on board, particularly in the Australian market. But if you know of people in US markets, or you want to have a conversation with us, and you've got a business and you'd love to join on the podcast, let us know. We'd love to have a chat with you and see where things go. We'd also love to discuss topics that you guys want to talk about. That's really important to us, is making sure that we're hitting the topics that people want to know about. Being realistic about what it's like to be a business owner, being realistic about what it's like to be an entrepreneur. None of this airy-fairy rubbish of, we'll give us 20 grand and we'll have you a successful business that's making you $400,000 a year for the rest of your life, and you have to do nothing, right? There's all these people that make these promises.
No, we're here to walk through with you, and try and come up with solutions for you if you need them, or just to chat. Sometimes all you need is just to chat. We're more than happy.
Yeah. Well, see, me as a business owner, right? I didn't plan on being a business owner. I was an accidental business owner, right? Like, it just sort of happened. It was, I spent maybe a few months thinking about it, but that was it, right? Doesn't mean it wasn't hard. Like, there was still so much effort and work that had to go into it. So much planning, so much future planning, so much direction, so much strategizing, and just so many man hours, like how many hours I had to cover personally, right? Just because things might happen accidentally and I get lucky doesn't mean there's not a lot of work involved as well. So every business owner that I've known have spoken about how much effort and how much work it is, and that's why a lot of people don't stay in business. I've got a few friends of mine that had businesses, and they actually get paid more working as an employee than they were running a business, right? So there are all these things, and there's like
Yeah.
we just want to be realistic. We want to be real. Particularly, we know a lot more about the Aussie market, being
Yeah, that
being
does help.
Aussies ourselves. But we'd love to talk to more people
Yeah.
in the international world. It doesn't have to be the US. It could
Europe,
be.
India.
We've got. I want to. Yeah, I want. I've got a mate of mine. Hopefully, we can get him
Oh,
on
wow.
board in Singapore. We'd love to be able to do a. He's got a few businesses running around, all that sort of stuff. So stay tuned, guys. We're wanting to produce as much content as
Yeah.
we can. Right now, we're looking at once a week. We're going to release a podcast, and as that grows, and as you guys
Yeah,
want
exactly.
more, we'll probably start producing more.
Yeah, so with that also,
And we'll go
guys,
from
make
there.
sure you smash the like button, subscribe, click the bell, so you know when we're posting. All of our links are down in the description, so my website, Pete's website, all of our socials. You can either comment on any questions that we've asked or that you want to ask, or you can send us an email at contact@uneducatedentrepreneurs.com. It'll be in the description. But with all that said, guys, you have a great
Nice.
week, and we will see you back here next week.
Have a good one, guys.